Hey guys, this is Mario again. Hope you guys are all having a good evening, day, whenever it is you watch this. Hold on, let me adjust the camera a little bit. As I record this, it's Tuesday night. It's about 8 o'clock at night. Just got home from LARP. And, as you can tell, I still have the weapons up. Just so you know, these ones aren't mine. These ones are Jeff's. He had to leave earlier, so as I was there, I'm like, oh, I'll take his weapons home. Now this are my weapon. Talking out of turn, that's a paddling. Making crappy movies, that's a paddling. Firing good actors, that's a paddling. And it's a shanking too. See, the leopard will get ya. Now, as you can tell from the title up here, it's now time for my top 10 worst movies of 2011. Now, unlike my first list, there's going to be no sharing spots here. Now, of course, some of these movies on here, I only skimmed through them. One of them on here I did not watch, but it's the first film on the list, and you'll get why I put it on this list in a little bit. But the films that are near the ending of the list, they deserve to be there. And as I mentioned before, Rise of the Planet of the Apes is not going to be on this list, so for those of my friends who don't like the movie, tough noogies. Tough noogies! Noogie! Okay, let's start with number 10. Number 10, the only movie on this list I have not seen, but just from what I've seen in the trailers and on the TV spots, I can already put this here. And that is the 2011 remake of the 84 classic, Footloose. I don't think I really need to elaborate why it's on here, because A, it's a movie that did not need to be remade. I know some people are going to argue, but Mario, it's based off the play. Who cares? Keep that, if you're going to do a play, keep it in the play. Don't make a movie version of it. Especially Footloose. It's one of those movies that doesn't need to be remade. Especially considering that in the first movie, you got Kevin Bacon playing the lead, and in this movie, you got some no-name guy I don't give a crap about. He used to be a backup dancer for Justin Timberlake. He's like, oh, my boss. Everybody's like, oh, my boss is in the movies. Maybe I can. I do not know why this has a 5.1 on IMDb. Granted, I'm happy the original still has higher, but it's only 1 point higher. Footloose, I think, should probably be at least a 6.8. Haven't seen it in years, but still. Now, the next movie on this list, just so you know, as I go through them, I'm going to be typing in the movies on Google so I can look at the Wikipedia articles. This next movie also has a 5.1 on IMDb. I don't know why. It is a movie that's kind of okay. It's a movie that, well, the premise of the movie is interesting. It's a reinvention of the fairy tale, taking a new spin on it. The execution is poor. And of course, the movie I'm talking about is a movie I just watched earlier today before I went to LARP, Red Riding Hood. Now, this movie is basically what you get when you take the story of Little Red Riding Hood and you make it and you make the spin that, well, for one, Red Riding Hood's an adult in it, but the spin is, instead of a wolf stalking a girl through the forest, it's a village being attacked by a werewolf. And that, I think, is clever. And of course, a lot of people are going to draw Twilight comparisons because of how the actors are, how people look, I guess, a little bit. The love story a little bit, especially since it's kind of a triangle at parts. And it does not help matters that the movie is, of course, directed by Catherine Hardwicke. I don't know if it's Wick or something. Who, of course, the last movie she directed was the first Twilight movie. So, I guess you could say, oh god, that's why. Now, of the movies of hers I've seen, I'm 2 for 3 of movies that I think are bad. This is one of them. It has its moments, though. The other movie, of course, is The Nativity Story. It's kind of think, she directed The Nativity Story and she directed Twilight in this. She really needs better stuff, because I know some people can say, oh, it's a chick flick movie. Some of the stuff that's in this movie, I don't think you could put in a chick flick, like witch prosecution, trying to stamp out evil, religious intolerance, stuff like that. I don't think that should be in a chick flick type movie. That's one of the problems. It just, the two elements don't seem to mesh well. The acting is ho-hum. The only acting jobs I thought that were decent to note mentioning, of course, are Virginia Madsen, who plays our female protagonist's mother, and of course Gary Oldman, who plays father, Solomon, who is the priest in charge of trying to catch the wolf. He does a magnificent job, I thought. I mean, I liked him at first, but then as the movie gone, I wanted to being a hypocrite. That's a paddling. Wasting silver on your fingernails. That's a paddling. I know, I can't get enough of those references. One thing I will say is that who the werewolf turned out to be, I did not see that coming. I thought it was going to be someone else, but who it turned out to be, I buy it a little bit, even though I only noticed like a couple hints of it being him or her. I'm not going to say who it is. And just to let you know, they do somehow work in the whole thing. Grandma, what big eyes you have! The moment I saw that, I'm like, okay, this is going to end up being a dream. Well, like I said, it's a good idea, but it's a piss-poor execution. The stuff that I would have changed is, I would have kept the romance in, because that romance is interesting. Maybe keep it a little bit of a love triangle, but make it less so. Maybe go a little bit more with the persecution stuff to make it more like a dark fairy tale, because that's what they're trying to do. I know there's another movie on my Netflix QA that I'm going to be watching soon that has a darker spin on fairy tale. Well, just from what I've seen of the movie, that one it succeeds. It's a Snow White one, but it's the reason she gets the red cloak I thought was interesting. The fact it's a werewolf is an interesting idea. And of course the persecution, it brings in the thing that the wolf is one of them, so you could have had paranoia, like people starting fights with one another, stuff like that. It's a wasted opportunity. I'm going to see who wrote the screenplay real quick. It's written by a guy named David Leslie Johnson. Let's see what else this guy wrote. He wrote the movie Orphan. Oh, he's the guy that wrote he's writing Wrath of the Titans. Then again, he also wrote for The Walking Dead Season 2, so hit and miss. So hopefully Wrath of the Titans is not screwed up. But now this next game, I'm not have to look up. It's on here. I've only seen part of it because I skimmed through it, and I don't think I need to elaborate why it's on here and why it has the higher spot than Red Riding Hood. Breaking Dawn Part 1. Those of you guys who know me and my feelings on Twilight, you guys already know. Oh, that's a microphone. For me, I don't see why Twilight is popular with all the critics giving it critical praise in it. Because for one, the most important aspect sucks, and that's the story. I don't buy it. Here's the thing. I find Bella's father to be a far more interesting character than she is. His whole deal with Bella's mother is far more interesting to me than Bella's romance with Edward and Jacob. And I actually feel more for her father than I do for her. I mean, the guy was married to her mother, and the mother's like, oh, I don't like small-time living, I'm leaving. I'm just leaving you, I'm leaving you, blah, blah, blah. You gotta feel for the guy. I mean, especially since she left when the guy's parents were sick, if I remember right. What a bitch. What a bitch. And then, of course, Bella going back and forth. Oh, I want Edward. Oh, I want Jacob. Oh, I want Edward. I will agree with the nostalgia critic on what he said about Bella. The way she's written, she would make a better villain, which is why I'm actually thinking of twisting one of the characters I have in one of the story ideas I have to maybe... Because I already had her as becoming a villain, but I never had the backstory of it. So now I got an idea by that. Maybe make a little twisting thing. But yeah, Bella would have been a better villain. But of the two romances she does, I think she should have ended up with Jacob. No, that's not saying I'm Team Jacob over Team Edward. I'm Team fuck Twilight. But my point is, I believe her being with Jacob more than her being with Edward. I mean, the only reason Edward is interested in her is because he can't tell what she's thinking. Stalker much? And a stalker vampire? God, strike him dead. And yeah, I don't like it. I don't like Robert as an actor personally. I mean, he didn't bother me in the Harry Potter movie he was in because he's hardly in it. And plus, because of a certain scene, we get a funny internet picture. Quick, Harry! Stop him in the hall before he begins to sparkle! Well, just Stephanie Meyer for me cannot write with crap, and I can say that because I've actually read her stuff. If it takes me a month to figure out how you're writing, to me you are a bad writer. Now, I know this is not because she's, as I said before, it's not because she's a female author, it's not because of the point of view she writes from, because Rowling is a female author. I can understand perfectly what she's saying. I've read other stuff from the same point of view. I can understand it perfectly. I can understand stuff written over 100 years ago more than I can understand Stephenie Meyer's prose. I think the only reason she started writing is because her sister wanted her to, and because she has an English degree. Okay, the English degree I give you, but not everyone with an English degree should write. You actually have to have one thing, Stephenie: talent. It's one of the things that not only you lack, but also a lot of new actors in Hollywood seem to be lacking. Especially the people in your movie, at least the teen ones. Now skipping. Next movie I've only skimmed through, but I'm actually glad I skimmed through it. And it's one of the movies on this list I'm like, why was it made in the first place? Were there people up late at night going, I wonder what happened after that? Even though the first movie ends perfectly, even though the only good thing about it is the antagonist's performance and the fact that it uses all practical effects. But I wonder what happens afterwards, and why is it called only half sequence? We need another one. I wasn't asking for a sequel. I don't think anybody was asking for a sequel, except, and I want to know who paid and lost money on this sequel. I'm of course talking about Human Centipede 2. Oh dear God. Ugh. First of all, the plot is that this fat fuck, I don't know the guy's name, he is so infatuated with the Human Centipede. I don't remember if it's actually a movie in their universe or somehow the guy got a copy of tapes from the doctor. I don't remember. But he gets so infatuated, he decides to make his own centipede only with 12 people. And he rapes the woman at the back of it. Not only that, but beforehand, he would masturbate to the footage with sandpaper wrapped around his hand. That only brings one word to mind. I think even Christopher Walken would be saying it. Ow! Not my junk. Ow! Who would do that? What type of masochist would you be? Ray Scott. Tell Scotland I do give a damn. Mask reference. But, like I said, with the people sitting up at late at night typing on the keyboard, sending to their director things, we need a sequel. Whether people are standing outside his house going, we want a sequel, we want a sequel. I need a sequel. That's a peddling. Unnecessary sequel, and I'm glad I didn't sit through the whole thing. There's another movie later on that I skipped through parts of it as well, but once I get to it, you guys will know why. Next movie is a movie I did sit all the way through. While I enjoyed parts of it, it's one of those movies that you enjoy while watching it, but after you watch it, you're like, no, this movie sucked. That, of course, is Green Hornet. Biggest problem with this movie probably is Seth Rogen, because, granted, I like him in certain things, like he was good as the voice of Paul. I like him in Kung Fu Panda. If I remember correctly, he was in Superbad. Yeah, I think it was on the cops. I didn't mind him there, but and I haven't seen in the movies like Knocked Up and other stuff that he's been in, so I can't rate him there. But here, he's a problem, because nothing about him screams Green Hornet. The guy that got to play Kato, he's okay, but he's no Bruce Lee. I hear at one point they were going to get Jet Li. That would have been better. Replace one Lee with another. Ha ha. And of course, the fact that it's a comedy doesn't help matters because it's supposed to be serious. Am I the only one who finds it ironic that one Green movie is on my good favorite list, the other one's on my least favorite list? Yeah, that's kind of ironic. Now, Cameron Diaz, I didn't mind her, but script. Now the villains. One thing I will praise about the movie is that the chase scene and the chase scene at the end of the movie is good, and you can see where the money for this movie went to on the screen. Next movie is a movie I watched today. Like Red Riding Hood, it has some good parts of it that I thought were good, but as a whole, the movie, I hated its guts. And that, of course, is the Fright Night remake. It's at number 5 because, unlike a lot of my other friends who hate this movie, I've never seen the original. Waiting to block tomatoes being thrown. Now, I never got around to watching the original, and I haven't watched the sequel. But I do loosely know what the original is about, so I could see some of the stuff taken from the original. And of course, it's another remake that I'm like, why? The original works, doesn't it? Granted, that guy got into an argument respectful argument, I will mind you. Unlike that guy I got into the Star Wars argument that I'm going to mention when I do my next Star Wars video. It was a respectful argument, but him saying that if a movie doesn't work, it deserves a remake. I'm guessing that some of the movies he's mentioned just didn't work for him, but I liked them. And also, this is the reason why I pay close attention to Beware the Blob, because he mentioned stuff. And well, granted, there are some scenes in Return of the Blob and Beware the Blob that are in the remake of the Blob, but one word, homage. Granted, I don't know why you would homage Beware the Blob instead of the original, but there's only one scene like that. And the other thing he mentioned, two totally different things. There's a difference between a head going backwards by accident and sticking your hand down a sink. But anyway, his whole thing about if a film doesn't work, it deserves a remake. Granted, that's partially true if it's a movie that sucks totally, yeah. But if it's a movie that a lot of people love and is considered a cult classic, I don't think it needs a remake. If it's a movie like Plan 9 from Outer Space, and that's that type of cult movie where it's so bad it's good, then it probably would need a remake, which Plan 9 is getting a remake. The Angry Video Game Nerd is going to be in it, so I'm going to go see it. But anyway, my point is that Fright Night, from what I've researched, did not need to be remade. Now, before I get to the rant part, I will mention the positive things. Hold on, I gotta look up the thing real quick because I want to get the actors' names right. Okay, positive. Positive. Okay, positive things. I did not really mind Colin Farrell as Jerry, or as a vampire in general, but the main problem is, of course, he's in a remake. If this was a movie that wasn't a remake of Fright Night, its own independent vampire movie, I would have said he probably would deserve award nominations, because he did a good job. The problem with it is that the guy who played Jerry in the original, Chris Sarandon, gets killed by him in the movie, and that's just a slap in the face of the original's fans. I mean, it'd be like if in the Nightmare remake, Jackie Earle Haley's Freddy killed Robert Englund if he had a cameo, or if in Rob Zombie's Halloween, Taylor Maine killed Dick Warlock, or one of the other Michaels, or if one of the non-Kane Hodder Jasons killed him. You just don't do it. Especially, I didn't notice it was him at first. I knew already, but then I had to actually look on Wikipedia to see who he played. I'm like, okay, that's who it was. That's who I thought. And of course, there's a little funny thing about it, though, is that the initials of Chris Sarandon's his character's name is JD, which is the same initials as the vampire character. Now, let me see. I gotta check to make sure I get the next character right. Okay. Okay, there it is. Another thing, Christopher Mintz-Plasse, who you guys know is McLovin. I think this is the right guy. I think I'm talking about the right guy. I'm just like to be sure. Having him. Performance I thought was pretty good. I mean, even at the end when he's a vampire, he does a pretty good job as a vampire. Also, the balance of practical effects and CGI is okay, but there's a few CGI parts that I'm like, why is that CGI? Like when Jerry, or should I put it, Jerry, not Jerry, and but when Jerry is going in that whole vampire face, it's CGI. I mean, if you could do practical in the original, why go CGI here? It makes no sense. And of course, I did chuckle a little bit at that thing that's in the trailer. Werewolf. Of course, vampire. I will admit that is kind of funny. But overall, the movie's just ho-hum and forgettable. But I will say, the Vegas suburb setting, I will say, that is actually how that part of the suburbs in that area of Nevada actually look, even though it's almost been 3 years since I've been there. So the look of the suburbs is right. And, but the main character, it's kind of hard to care for. I mean, he's a jerk to his friend just to be friends with the popular crowd. I mean, what a dick. I mean, I'd probably only go back to him for the same reason that Chris goes back to him, but still, what a dick. And of course, there's one thing in this movie, I don't know if it's in the original movie, but I will say it is kind of a smart idea for a vampire to do, and if it's unique to the remake, I would say I wish I thought of it. It's the scene where Jerry burns down their house. You know, he digs up the gas pipe, then lights it on fire, and then he's like, "Don't need an invitation if there's no house." Now, like I said, I don't know if that was in the remake. The original. If it wasn't the original, God, why did they redo it? But still, if it was unique to the remake, it's a smart idea. I wish I thought of it. But like I said, ho hum. The acting performances by everyone else is hit or miss. One thing I will say though is that the girlfriend character of our main character, I thought at first she was going to be a bitchy character, stereotypical pretty girl that's a prep. But I was actually surprised that she turned out to be a nice character, and that we found out the reason she's dating him is because she wanted someone different. She didn't want, a big muscle guy like, I'm buff, I'm good looking, I'm in high school, come on, date me. I'm the quarterback cheerleader, you're going out with me. Stuff like that. And that she actually, I guess, has a lesson that one girl from Clerks 2 learns. I'm talking about, of course, Dante's first fiancée in that movie, but you guys should know what I'm talking about, that don't just judge by what you do, I guess. Just, like, the jock may be handsome and stuff, but he may be a dick. So I guess she has that, but it's a small thing. But still, as I was watching the movie, the good stuff I saw made me really wish that I was watching an individual movie that was not a remake. So, let's see, the guy that wrote this movie was someone named Marty Noxon, which I'm going to see what else this person's written. Oh, they were involved with Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Really? They're also involved with that movie I Am Number 4. It's kind of hard to believe. I've never watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but it's kind of hard to believe. Then again, if that one scene is unique to this movie, then that would kind of explain it. But I guess they're like, oh, fuck, I'll just half-ass it. It's a remake. But why, I still ask, was this movie made? I mean, the movie barely even got over its budget worldwide, $37 million on a $30 million budget. So I'm gonna guess here in the United States it flopped, and I have to say it deserved to. Now the next movie is a sequel, not a remake, but it's a sequel that was only made for one reason, and it's the same reason that the 90s Fantastic Four movie, excuse me, I forgot the title, was made, and that was to keep the movie rights. And my good buddy Matt did a very great rant on this movie, so I'm not going to really talk much about it. Maybe later on down the line I'll give it its own individual review. But the movie, of course, is Hellraiser Revelations. Need I say more? Number 3 is a movie that I've heard negative things about ever since October when Movie Guru Joe reviewed it. And ever since then, I've been hesitant to review it. I had it in my Instant QA, but after watching it, I will admit, Joe was right about this movie. He was spot on it. The sad thing is that this movie is written and directed by Kevin Smith. You guys already should know what movie I'm talking about. Red State. Now, the one thing about this movie is they listed it as a horror movie. This isn't a horror. This is a thriller. It's not one of those movies that you can like cross-list it like sci-fi action horror, stuff like that. It's just a thriller. There's nothing horrific about it. Now, are there any good notes? John Goodman, he's a good character there for the little bit he's there. He's kind of he's likable and not likable at the same time. To say why would spoil the ending, but I probably will soon. I'll probably spoil it in this video anyway, because I don't think people should watch this movie. Maybe just for curiosity's sake. The guy that plays the preacher dude, he is so over the top and stuff that you can't help but hate him, so he's a good villain, so you hate him, but the main characters you're supposed to feel sorry for, I don't really find them likable. Maybe it's how they were written. I'm gonna guess it's that and their actors, because one of the actors is from the Nightmare remake. This boy Survivor. I'm like, oh god, it's the guy that looks like a guy I went to high school with. It's the guy that it was a friend of mine in high school, but crap. And of course, it's this movie. I guess you could say the religious people in this movie is the reasons. One of the main reasons I'm glad that we have a separation of church and state in this country. There are some people, like that one guy who's running for president, whose rallies look basically like an evangelical sermon. He is a more minor reason, but it's the very religious nuts, the creation's nuts. The universe was created 6,000 years ago. It's those very religious nut people, like Fred Phelps, for example, which he's mentioned by name in the movie, by the way. It's those religious people I hate. I mean, I'm religious. I think your religion should just be, your religious thing should be up to you. And we don't think we should persecute people, Kill the Jews, kill the Christians, kill the Muslims. What about the Buddhists? Leave them, but kill the Hindus. I don't think we should do stuff like that. Because for one, it just makes us more it just feeds our warlikeness and just makes us kill people. Because, as George Carlin put it, religion has been one of the main causes of war for years, and it's all because we need an excuse to go to war. It's like, they worship a different way, let's go kill them. But they're Christians, so they're worshiping God differently. They're wrong! And that's why I'm glad, at least in this country, we have a separation of church and state. But it's people like this that it seems like they want to take that away. And they're saying, the country's full of sin. So it's a sin to follow Jesus' teaching of love thy neighbor and treat others the way you want to be treated. It's a sin to follow Jesus. I don't know what's more crazy, the fact that he's trying to say Jesus is a sinner, or the fact he's sounding like a hypocrite. But still, I digress. Like I said, John Goodman's good, but he's likable and not. The likable thing about him is that the likable thing is, I'll get to second. The unlikable thing is, at first he's following his orders to a T, and the orders to a T is to kill everyone because they screwed up. They were supposed to not do a raid, and they shot one of the hostages by mistake without realizing it. Then they were ordered to kill everyone, even the children, which I thought was bullshit of an order. Then he doesn't decide to change it till the very end. Of course, he gets promoted for it. That's what makes him likable, especially in comparison to the people that gave him the orders and conducting the interview, saying, we're going to put him away forever. Because they mentioned the Patriarch Act. And it's stuff like that. I guess it's because I watched this movie the night after a little bit after I watched The Conspirator. That it's those two, the things shown in that movie, one real, obviously, and one that actually happened, and one that doesn't, is why I think we should not have stuff like the Patriot Act. It just is, like I've said before, us citizens giving the government a little bit more leeway in how they deal with us in exchange for the feeling of safety. Which, like I said, eventually will end up in a George Orwell universe like in 1984, where only one person will be writing down with Big Brother. That's what I'm saying. Down with Big Brother. Fuck Big Brother. Now, this next movie is a movie I know my buddy Michael King likes, and he's the only one in our group that likes it, which I think parts of it were in the right place, but overall together, like Red Riding Hood and like the Fright Night remake, it sucks. For me, at least. That, of course, is the Zack Snyder directed movie Sucker Punch. Like I mentioned, and like the subtitle of my review was the name not a clue? Didn't have to walk up to you, excuse me, sir. What is that for? My name, Sucker Punch. Now, the things I liked about this movie is, like, even though I thought some of the CGI could have been practical, just to add it a little bit in the computer, I thought the fight scenes were good. It makes me wish that all the video game fight scene stuff were the actual movie, instead of it being a dream within a dream, which is another thing, the dream within the dream. I understand it, but it confuses me, and like Matt put it, action scenes, if there's no risk to the main characters whatsoever, it kind of defeats the purpose. I mean, imagine if you were watching Rambo, and it was a dream sequence, which granted he did have a dream sequence, but it wasn't like an action, it was him remembering stuff, but you could tell it was a dream, and it looked like he was going to be in danger, and you didn't know it was a dream at first. And you're like jumping, and then when you find out it's a dream, you might feel cheated. That's the thing, because I know it's imagination, so I feel cheated. Even though some of the stuff that happens in that secondary one happened in the second one and the first one. And also, she's going to be in a mental hospital. That would have been more interesting than her dreaming she's like in a nightclub. Her trying to get out of being lobotomized. Now, of course, the thing of why she's in the mental hospital, that doesn't bother me, because from what I understand, if I remember right, this movie takes place in the 60s. Back then, men, even though women had a lot more rights, there was still some stuff men were allowed to get away with because they were men. And one of them, of course, is some of the stuff. I don't know. No, I think I need to reword this a little bit. They could get away with stuff because they were men sometimes. And also because of that, some women might be afraid to speak up. I mean, they mentioned this once in an episode of Law and Order SVU when they're talking about a murder case that they bring in a victim and they find out she was raped by her husband, and the reason she didn't want to tell the prosecution is because it was a female prosecutor, and just looking at her, she felt ashamed because she wanted to get an abortion because it was a guy's child. I know I'm getting off track, but this is leading into my point. And the point is she didn't tell the cops that arrested her is because she was still in a daze, and also she didn't feel safe talking to them because there was no female officer. It's just the atmosphere is different. The point is the atmosphere is different. If we're looking at it from how the atmosphere is today, we might not understand it. I guess it's just like when you look at, let's say, Gone with the Wind. Now you can notice that the black characters in that movie are portrayed slightly stereotypical and maybe a little bit racist. But back then it would have been like, look at him, good old. I think you guys get what I mean with that. It's just the time difference thing. So I have to say, how Baby Doll's incarcerated doesn't bother me. And also, she's kind of catatonic after what she did to her sister. But the sister thing I will call bullshit on, if I remember right. Because if I remember right, I even was like a little bit confused. I'm like, how did that? But it's just the whole dream within a dream thing really takes me out of the movie. I understand what it means, but it just takes me out of the movie. And now my number one worst movie of 2011 is a movie that has gotten some praise, which I'm going to check right now what the IMDb is.
That's what I think will be shocked. Oh my loving God. It's a 6.4. I'm going to steal a line from the Miz for this. Really? Really? Really, people on IMDb, you're giving that a 6.4? This movie at its most should be like a 4. This is one of those movies that deserves a 4. Granted, I know there's some people that can look at it as a companion piece, I know, but I guess they look at it the same way I kind of enjoy Predators, granted, but still, this is an unneeded movie. Predators, you could actually say was kind of needed because we might need another sequel because of how the second movie ends, but still, this is an unneeded movie because it's one of those prequels that's unneeded. I'm one of the people when it comes to prequels, if it's a prequel story that is kind of needed and when told it kind of explains a little bit more. Like, take the Star Wars prequels, for example. I don't mind them. Granted, I've mentioned I find flaws in a lot of them, and I wish Lucas had not directed them or written the screenplays directly and should have had better casting choices. But I enjoy the movies for what they are and the story they tell. Granted, like I mentioned a couple times before, I might be a little biased since I've read the novelizations, and I tend to look at some of that stuff, especially for the stuff that's only glanced over in the movies themselves. How it adds to the arc of the 6 movies together, it's good. Like, it shows a little bit more of Darth Vader's human side, what makes you feel for him a little bit. You see why he acts the way he does. So that is a needed prequel. The movie that is not number 1, not a needed prequel. Everything that happens in this movie we did not need to see, because the original movie from the 80s, basically what it mentioned about the events that are portrayed in this movie was enough. And of course, the movie is The Thing, or as a bunch of my buddies like to call it, The Turd, because that's what it is. It's a turd on Carpenter's movie. That video of McCready watching the Thing prequel trailer, that's an accurate representation of my thoughts on this movie. Because, granted, good things about the movie, the female protagonist is kind of likable, but at the time she seems like they're trying to model her after Ellen Ripley, which, for a prequel, we know everyone dies, doesn't work. We hardly see any dogs. The effects are CGI, even though they said they were going to use practical, and they probably did have practical on the set, but the only one I noticed, of course, was the autopsy scene.
The fillings thing, well, I've said I like the idea, but I mentioned before it was executed poorly because you'd actually need the dental charts for it to work. People come and go, and also we never see them actually excavate the thing, and when they do, it's a little bit different than what we see on film. Which, that's kind of, I don't know if you would call that a plot. I don't know what would you call that a plot hole or an inconsistency or a continuity issue, but whatever, it's a big boo-boo. It's a boo-boo. Hey, boo-boo, we're gonna watch the thing. I don't think that's such a good idea, Yogi. People hate that movie. Ah, boo-boo, you worry too much. Remember, I'm smarter than the average bear. Then why don't we watch our movie, Yogi? Boo-boo, you are selfish, boo-boo. We need to watch other movies. We need to diversitize. When did you learn such a big word, Yogi? I read it on the internet. That means it must be true. I know, I couldn't help it, but like I said, some people think this is a companion piece. Power to you, but for me, I cannot watch this movie as a companion piece because when I was watching this movie the second time, all through it, I wanted to turn the movie off, go into the search thing, type in the thing, and watch it instantly via Netflix. And probably I will watch it again soon. So you'll probably see another review about it soon because I reviewed it almost 2 years ago, but my style has changed and I think I can review it better now. So that review on my original channel will probably go down soon. And I'll probably do another tribute. I just gotta think of a song idea. Anyway, that's my top 10 worst movies of 2011. Remember, this is my list. If you liked any of the movies on there, like I said, power to you. But I just don't like them. As the Grinch would say, I really don't like them. No, I don't. I'm much too tolerant with these Hollywood delinquents and their innocence and their reckless, shitty movies. I'm gonna have to kick their asses. I'm gonna have to go down to Hollywood and steal all their money. Because that's why I'm the Grinch. It'd be like that. The Grinch who stole Hollywood. And he's not sorry. But anyway, I know this movie, like the top 10 of that are good. This is a little bit late, but I wanted to watch two more movies before I did the list, and they were on the list. So anyway, like I just said a little bit ago, if you like some of the movies, power to you. I don't like them. This is my list. If they're on your top list or something, power to you. Anyway, that does it for this. Now, but some of you are wondering, are there going to be any other reviews coming up soon? Like I said, I'll probably re-review the things soon, but there's a couple other movies I want to watch. Like, I've had The Lincoln Lawyer over there for a while. If I had watched it by now, it probably would have been in the top videos of last year, but I don't know. Probably give Paul a rewatch soon. Yeah, I'm not going to re-review it, but I want to watch it. I know next week I'm going to go to a movie on Friday, and you'll probably see a re-review of a movie I did review on my first channel during Oscar reviews, but I'll talk about my theater experience for it. It's a movie that's getting re-released, and it's a Disney movie. I'm not going to say what it is, because you guys probably not know, but one thing about the Disney re-releases, granted they're doing them in 3D, I'm going to see a 2D version if it's there. But hopefully this re-release from Disney shows Hollywood that re-releases work. Stop. As Wildman has been saying, remakes of the disease, re-releases are the cure for life.